Well, hello everyone, and happy afternoon. Thank you for joining myself and Kristi Holt here this afternoon on this session of Tech Beat. I'm going to come back and do a little bit of an official intro with Kristi. I'm super excited to have her with us today. You're going to learn a ton from her, and you're going to fall in love with her, which is just natural when you're around Kristi. Anyways, quickly, welcome to this segment of Tech Beat, where leaders learn, innovate, and grow. My name is Earl Foote. I am founder CEO of Nexus IT Consultants. We are an outsourced IT cybersecurity compliance and cloud firm based here in northern Utah and serving a nationwide footprint and beyond. And I want to just remind everybody that we will be taking audience questions here throughout this hour, as well as the end of the hour. So whatever platform you're joining us from, feel free to add comments or questions into the chats or comments within those platforms. Kristi and I will do our best to keep an eye on those and get to those, as it makes sense throughout the hour. Quickly, just want to remind or inform everybody that we've got some really great episodes coming up as well for this podcast in the coming weeks. Jordan Bogard, founder president at ADHR, is going to be joining me. Fantastic guy, very knowledgeable as well. My friend Ross McGarvey, CEO of Event 8, will be joining me. If you don't know Ross, you definitely want to get, well, you know him or you don't know him, you want to get on that session. Ross is Scottish, and he is a barrel of laughs all the time. He's so much fun, and that's going to be a great session. And then my friend Stephanie Page, director of Clean Start LLC, or Clean Start Intermountain, will be joining me as well in the coming weeks. So keep an eye out for those announcements. And then let's get to the conversation and the guest of the hour. So welcome, Kristi Holt here. Such a pleasure to have you. Kristi is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Vibeonix, which quantifies wellness utilizing voice analysis, artificial intelligence. Kristi is a born entrepreneur. She has been recognized for her leadership, community involvement, and ability to mobilize change. Kristi began her career as a young entrepreneur over 20 years ago. She applies her learned skills to implement and define Vibeonix strategy and technologies. After years of personal experience and research in neuroscience and human behavior, she went on to build an innovative voice technology assessment revealing emotional and mental well-being. Kristi's business strategy has radically transformed business and the lives of those who have used her product. Her product sheds light on emotions and how to build a healthy relationship with each one of them to help people along their journey of self-awareness. Prior to her role at Vibeonix, Kristi has been involved with 10 startup companies in a variety of industries such as e-commerce, solar, subprime auto lending, CBD manufacturing, and a local media company / magazine, as well as technology. Kristi has successfully exited 6 of her startup companies. With each startup, Kristi has fundraised, led an acquisition, led in sales and marketing, and developed numerous processes to success. Massive amounts of experience here. If you have questions on any of these topics, you're going to want to get them, in the chats, the platforms you're joining us from. Kristi also sits on the board of the Women's Tech Council and is an advisory board member of the WeLift UVU program to mentor women entrepreneurs. So Kristi, officially, thank you for joining me and welcome here today.
Well, thank you so much, Earl. That was a mouthful. I don't know if we needed to say that. I think we left out that I have 2 cats, a bird, and 4 kids.
Hey, it's all done. It's all done. we got everything. I think the bio is fascinating, and certainly helps us learn more about you. But look, Kristi, I know that we've got a really cool topic here planned for this hour. We're going to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, but not just entrepreneurship, but holistic entrepreneurship. And this is an idea that many are not overly familiar with, including myself. So I'm super excited to learn from you this hour. But before we really engage in that topic, let's just let's learn a little bit more about you. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at now. Where did you grow up, and what's your journey, your entrepreneurial journey been along the way that has landed you, as the founder CEO of Vibeonix at this point?
Well, it goes back to when I was actually raised in Logan, Utah. And I'm actually a true Aggie, but true Aggie, if you know what that is, then that's a special. It means that you kiss somebody on the A. That's a big deal. So a true Aggie, and there I studied.
Let's clarify. You hiked to the A on the mountain and you kissed somebody there, right?
Yes.
Because
there's like.
I don't mean to be vulgar, but kiss somebody on the A could mean something completely different here.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I want to make sure we clarify there.
No, you meet at like 12 o'clock, and a true Aggie can only give to another Aggie. So now you're both true Aggies through kissing. So yes, it's a whole thing.
I had no idea. It's a Logan thing
It's a Logan thing. It's a Logan thing for sure. But there I studied accounting, business management, and I've been around entrepreneurship my whole life. I really feel like my dad was my true inspiration and mentor, and at a young age learned and was taught to think big and to be an entrepreneur. And that's where the American dream is. In fact, every time when I got in trouble as a teenager, my dad came up with this great thing that I needed to read, a self-help book. And it always was centered around business, because at the time he paid us like 50 cents an hour to work for him. So I did all of his accounting, and I did, I reconciled all the accounts, and I kept track of all of our expenses when I was in high school. And I actually fell in love with accounting, believe it or not, because I liked seeing things match, and I liked being able to put in the data and understand how QuickBooks. And in fact, that was my first job out of when I moved to the big city, Salt Lake. I custom fit accounting programs for small businesses, and I started doing that right in college. But that was my first do something for someone else based on some skill I thought I had. It actually worked out pretty well for me. And then I moved to Salt Lake, and my first big girl job was at Richens Office Design and Rodizio Grill. So I was a waitress at night because I absolutely loved people, and it was so much fun. And that was my social. And then during the day, I worked at an office furniture for high-end customers. So I realized my entrepreneur spirit was going to just continue. I ended up doing a custom fit accounting program for a cell phone company, and we built 6 locations. And on that, I learned a ton in how to expand and a lot of what not to do, if I could so boldly say, and really learning to be scrappy. Scrappy would be the word. And observe that gentleman doing that. And somehow, well, I have a story, but we won't go into it, about how I got into the beauty industry. But I decided that I wanted to do permanent cosmetics. And I thought I'd be really good at it. And I have 4 sisters, and I got about 6 people to pay me to do their permanent cosmetics so I could go and pay for my certification.
Wow.
I still don't know why anyone ever gave me money to put a tattoo on their face before I even knew how to do it. But somehow I got it, and I paid for my certification and fell in love with the beauty industry. And that was the first business I started, was a day spa that eventually we turned into a med spa that we sold 5 years after we started it. The funny thing about that is I remember going through all the numbers and cost analysis for how much each facial would cost and all the services that a day spa would cost, not even knowing about the service. So I decided to go back to school and get my Master Aesthetics license. So I really understood what was going on behind closed doors. So we started with one little 10 by 10 room. And by the time we sold it, we were at 4,500 square foot day spa. And we were the first one to actually sell in Utah, sell a day spa in a strip mall.
That's fantastic. So. What a whirlwind. I guess first of all, so, remind me, you were 26 when you sold the med spa?
Yep, 26.
That's a young age to build a successful business and sell it. Quite the journey. It sounds like your dad was a great parent too, to punish you by making you read, personal development books, business, really professional development books, right?
Well, how to win friends and influence people when you're 14, 15 years old. I mean, or 7 Habits. I mean, Think Big. I read Zig Ziglar. I actually got to meet Zig Ziglar later, but personality test, which is a big one for me. And that's probably where I actually learned how interesting human behavior was at a really young age. And patterns in human behavior became just fascinating to me, which now is part of what we do. So
right, which has really evolved into your current venture. Tell us a little bit about more about this concept of holistic entrepreneurship. You and I.
Yeah.
So Kristi and I have known each other for a few years. When your family relocated from southern Utah, back to the metropolis here, you and I had met, and we've had great opportunities to hang out a little bit here and there, be at mutual events and that kind of stuff. And we've gotten to know each other a little bit, which has been, fantastic and delightful. We've had, offline conversations about the rigors of entrepreneurship and how it can really tax you as an individual, tax your well-being, your mental health, it can be a massive challenge to be committed to your physical fitness. Not only your mental fitness, right, but your physical fitness as an entrepreneur, because you're generally the load you carry is significant, and the amount of hours and time you put into a venture is significant. So tell us a little bit more about this concept of holistic entrepreneurship and what it means to you.
Okay, absolutely. So after selling that first business, I started my second business, which I think I've shared with you that I had to close it after 9 months. There's lots of reasons. That's a whole other podcast. And then I started another online e-commerce party plan business because, being the home of Utah, it's basically an MLM concept. Started that, and after 7 years, sold that, and then it actually just sold again after 14 years of business. So that was a really big positive win. All of it comes with a bunch of heartache, but until that point, and then we started a solar company, and we also invested in aluminum anodizing. Up until that point, I ran everything like a true entrepreneur, and I was burned out. I was exhausted. I literally would say I was just kind of at the bottom of my energy levels, and I really was struggling. And also there's other things that were going on in our life personally, which actually influenced Vibeonix and what we're doing there. My husband had left his corporate position and come and done an entrepreneurship program with me, which is our solar company. And we decided that we wanted to sell that, and we invested in some real estate. There was just a lot going on, and I ran it a lot like a traditional entrepreneur. None of my businesses I felt like were big enough wins that I owned a company. I felt like my companies all owned me and ran me into the ground. And it wasn't until I took a job that we discussed yesterday where I ended up taking a salary position where around amazing people who were talking about higher amounts of money. So I'd also was working on my belief and my glass ceiling around how much money I could make. And so I surrounded myself with people that were doing awesome things and talking about more money and talking about different types of success. And it really gave myself permission to pause as an entrepreneur and just kind of realign. And in doing that, it set me up to move forward with Vibeonix. And now how I would define entrepreneurship as a holistic entrepreneur. And ever since I went through that transition as an entrepreneur, my life has been completely different. So I'll just explain the difference between the two, and I think that will really help us. And I wrote it down because sometimes I talk and I just go off. And so I wrote it down. So an entrepreneur is a person who organizes and operates a business, taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. Okay, that feels like lame. Just kidding. Yay, I took on bigger financial risks. I'm a risk taker is really what that means.
And I'm working around the clock, and usually for like, pennies.
Pennies.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, it didn't say make a huge financial gain. It actually says take a bigger financial risk, right? And in financial risks, you do everything to save it. So a holistic entrepreneur is defined this way. Being a holistic entrepreneur means there is no separation between your love, your life, work, and spirituality. It's a way of life that leads to serving in whatever capacity you're living in that very moment. It's driving into that path that makes your heart sing, your divine calling. So when I went back into the entrepreneurship world after taking that job and feeling a little bit more whole, and did a lot of healing and did a lot of reflecting and did a lot of analyzing to see what can I do different this time that would not take me where it had taken me the last 20 years. I realized that this whole idea that you are separate from your business is not true. For me as an entrepreneur, it was constantly living inside of me. So to be able to show up in places and pretend that that wasn't there was actually like suppression, emotional suppression in a lot of ways. And then when I was having conflict in business, I didn't know where or who to share that with, especially as a CEO. It's like, where do you express like your fears or your concerns or things that you're really scared about or you don't have the answers to? And I had been a member of certain masterminds and stuff like that where we could really be honest with each other, but not at the level that I was honest with myself. I had to make a commitment that I was going to tell myself the truth and ask for help when I needed it and not try to do it all myself. And because my relationships, my well-being had to matter more than anything I was carrying alone. So that was a big one for me. And we can talk about, like, I have all these tips on being a holistic entrepreneur. And to me, it's just bringing it into your awareness and being a holistic entrepreneur and being aware of it. There's one thing I had to get clear in my mind and in my heart, that the word balance does not exist. And what that meant for me is something's got to give. That there's a season for everything, and you're not going to succeed at the level of expectation in every area of your life. And I think that that's what causes the burnout. That's what causes you to like have a mental come apart or a mental breakdown or lose your relationships or lose the things that are really important in your life. So for me, being a holistic entrepreneur is making a decision and a choice to be present wherever you are. So whether if I'm, the first one I listed was love. If I'm with my husband, I'm going to be absolutely present in my love with him and our relationship, which means I had to get disciplined to put work over here, unless he asked me about it, right? Or to put my stresses down for a minute and receive the love that he was willing to give me. Because if I've got all my guard up and all my stresses and my emotional craziness, how can I actually feel the love that's sitting right in front of me, that he's willing, and connect with that, right? And then with that, when I'm with my kids, I needed to put my phone down. I don't need to have, people do not need to have 24/7 access to me. Put my phone down, not be looking at LinkedIn or looking at emails or like checking things on Discord. That's a new one I've added to my, that one's another one, but how many do we have, right?
Right.
But I actually gave my kids permission to tell me, Mom, will you put your phone down and remind me to be present? Another one is when I'm at work, I make a really clear decision that when I'm at work, I'm going to be at work. I'm not going to be worried about the kids. The kids are taken care of. Everything's fine. There's nothing to stress about. There's nothing to think about. We've managed that in a really good way. So I'm just going to be present at work, right? And my kids know when I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm with them, I'm with them. And when I'm with my husband, I'm with him. When I'm with friends, I'm with them. When I'm with my mom, I'm with my mom. But that was the discipline of it being present where you are and make peace in that choice. And then realize that something's got to give. It's not going to be in balance. So in startup, most likely, I'm not going to have a lot of friends that I'm hanging out with on the weekend, because if I have a minute, it's going to be with my husband or my kids, because that's my focus right now, right? When my kids are all moved out and they have their own lives, now it gets to be maybe about more like friends and my husband, right? So. Or when we're not in startup, it's not going to be working 60 to 80 hours a week. I maybe can go to 40 hours a week. But right now we're in a startup phase. That's the expectation that is real. And that's the decision that we made. And how can I honor that? And then just let that be the decision and find peace in that choice. So to me, balance isn't a word that I use. I use the word harmony. Be in harmony with your choices. And that to me is that holistic entrepreneur, right? And even in spirituality, that was my last one. But spirituality, like, when do I find peace in myself and take time for myself? To me, with spirituality is your connection to source or connection to something bigger than you. So just really taking that time to connect with that and find that peace within. So when I look at myself as a whole person, that's what holistic entrepreneur means. So before I kept breaking it up into little pieces, and I think that doesn't work long term.
It's fascinating. I want to dig, further into it. I do want to, maybe just kind of reaffirm some of the concepts you've talked about here and the real life challenges and struggles of an entrepreneurial lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going to share right now is honestly something that I don't share publicly. Few people have ever heard me kind of tell this, right? I did grow up in one of those homes where, very traditional, you bottle things up, right? If things are bugging you, things aren't working, you just kind of sweep it under the rug and you move on and you deal with it, right? And thankfully, I think that we're evolving as a society, human beings, and certainly you and I have had some conversations about the awareness of mental health and well-being and how great that is and how it is influencing all of our lives for positive. The fact that you were here last week, with the event that Levi Lindsay and McStagey and Lindsay Ivy put on, We Are Mind, Stand Up for Mental Health event, which we were happy to host and be part of and sponsor. That was fantastic, creating more of this awareness. But and my awareness around mental health has certainly heightened significantly over recent years as I've had life partner and children who have struggled, and my own struggles, right? And coming to terms with the fact that, hey, just bottling this all up doesn't really work, And so the reality is that, particularly in the earlier phases of a business, as you've mentioned in startup mode, the rigor, the challenges, the stress, the anxiety, they're intense. And you and your livelihood and your family's livelihood and the livelihood of all of your team members and your product and your service and your business, it's all on the line all the time. And you're under the gun all the time. And it's really, really easy to forget about making sure that you are being present, in your different roles that you've selected to be a priority in your life. And it's really easy to burn out. There came a time for me, I'm 22 years into my journey of Nexus IT, and there came a time for me where, and this is the portion I don't tell a lot of people, certainly, but just to be open and vulnerable, I fell out of love and I burnt out, and I certainly had to look in the mirror and decide, is it time to give up? Is it time to move on? Is it time to, to let somebody else take the helm here and, and do what they will with this thing? And, I had to go through this reflective, very interpersonal, very deeply introspective journey to kind of figure out how I could become a holistic entrepreneur, how I could connect with who I am as an individual, my life mission, my passion, my purpose. And ultimately for me, that came down to really understanding that what makes me tick is to serve, is to be of value, to add positively to the life of people around me, whether that be team members or clients or their businesses, and once I was able to kind of reconnect with that purpose and say, okay, I'm here to be a servant leader. I'm here to help grow a business and grow people and have a positive impact on our clients and their businesses. I was able to re-engage and really feel, purpose and meaning in what I, in what I do day in and day out. But there was a time there where, it was a significant struggle, and it was, I was dealing with massive burnout, just around the clock stress and anxiety, and frankly, this is another thing I really haven't ever expressed publicly, but I think I've developed a fairly good grade of anxiety because of entrepreneurship. It's hard to be on all the time, right? And hard to have so much on your shoulders all the time. And so, I completely understand, what you're talking about here. And I know how, and I've expressed partially, how kind of connecting with this concept of holistic entrepreneurship and finding purpose and meaning and presence in your defined roles. I know what it's done for me, what it's done for people around me. But tell me a little bit more about your experience with this discovery and what it's meant to you and your family, your team, and that kind of stuff.
Well, first off, I have to tell you, thank you for your courage and your bravery to share your story. Because I think when we share the real stories, the stories that are meaningful and authentic, it gives other people permission to feel their own story. And I think that as we talk about mental health and we talk about entrepreneurship, telling that side of the story is real. It's not just about the unicorn that got sold for $8 billion, which is well to be celebrated. But a lot of the time we don't necessarily share when we almost lost our house, or when we lost every relationship that mattered to us, or the loss, I will just say, as an entrepreneur, can be overwhelming and extremely painful. Unless we become more aware about what you brought up so beautifully was your why. I think, that book, Start With Why, that changed me when I read that, because it was something I wrote down and realized it's going to change and evolve, and there's different seasons. But keeping your why is really, and really define your why, not only from a financial gain or success, but something bigger than that. Like what you said, your purpose, and your purpose is to serve the families and the businesses that you serve is why you want to do this. Because that is so much bigger than you, right? That thing, when I talk about spirituality or beliefs or whatever, that why is what drives me. That why I'm on this earth. Why am I around these people? Why am I having children? Why am I married? Why am I here? And I think when I look at life as a holistic entrepreneurship, and why do I do what I do every single day? What am I exchanging that for? And why am I doing it is what drives me the most. My why is very similar to you and very simple. It is to be an inspiration of joy. And that's why I do what I do. If I can't give what I don't have, right? So for me to focus on my own joy had to be part of the scenario. Otherwise, I can't be an influence of joy if I'm not in joy, right? So I had to redo everything in my life to say, because, and joy is a funny thing when people think about it. You might think it was love. You might think it was other things. But for me to say it was joy, I want to enjoy my experience. I want to enjoy being an entrepreneur. I want to enjoy being married. I want to enjoy having a family. I want to enjoy eating good food. I want to enjoy taking a walk outside. I just want every moment. I want to enjoy being with you right now. And the only way to do that for me was to be present and find the joy and experience the joy. And if I'm not in joy, to pause and say, okay, what am I doing or thinking that is making this hard or painful? And that really was changed my life in entrepreneurship. And if I'm thinking about my own joy, then what I do is joyful, and that brings joy to others, then we're making a huge impact in the world, right? Yeah. So one other thing that you said that I wanted to just kind of touch on, and it's a little bit deep, and I think it's really impactful for entrepreneurs to talk about. But one of the things that we say a lot is we're stressed or we have anxiety. And as we studied emotional health and emotional awareness, we studied to see what was more real. Okay. And we're talking from like a frequency, like what feels like a real thing inside of you, so it can actually move through you. And we found that most people are not depressed. And I know that's a big thing to say out loud when depression's that everyone's talking about depression, right? What we found is more people are lonely. Mm-hmm. And wow. I'll share, right. And I'll share a really deep story, a very personal story on that. And then we also found that when we said the word anxiety, people immediately felt it in their nervous system and shut down, right? They felt the anxiety and want to leave it or flee it, or kind of like high levels of stress, fight, flight, or freeze, right? But when we replaced it with the word fear, it felt more curiosity, but it felt more real to people. And it was like, yeah, I just don't know. I'm confused. So I'm frustrated because I'm afraid. And where do people move when they move from fear? It can move you in a direction to something differently. But when you realize that it's fear, you'll ask different questions. Because when we just say it's anxiety, it's almost like you just write it off because it's such a blanket statement. You don't even know what to do with that, right? But when you might say, what am I afraid of? Whoa, the whole conversation inside yourself, even the energy of asking that question is, quite honestly, it can be more expansive, and it can start to build your curiosity, which curiosity finds solutions. Yeah. So it's a really just a little shift in how to manage through anxiety as a leader specifically, and as anyone who's influencing other people. It's like, instead of writing it off with that word, ask a better question or a more insightful question that can give a different energy to move through it.
Yeah, that's very, very insightful. And really, if we think about it, I think at the core of, what we would call anxiety, generally it's fear, right? The anxiety is the byproduct of, I'm afraid that I can't make payroll, this week. I'm afraid that I'm not going to take a paycheck home, and how am I going to pay my mortgage, and how am I going to put food on the table for my family, and how's my team going to do the same, right? Or, are we going to have to shut this thing down in the next month because we just don't have enough cash flow going through this thing, and the profits aren't there, and whatever else, right? So it's fear of the consequences, or maybe you and I have talked about this, but fear of perception of others, right?
Right.
There's so many things. I think this is really, really great.
There's one more thing I would add to what you were just saying, and I love that you gave those live examples, because then the next step, because we just talked about presence, right? How to be present is to say, is that true today? So payroll, for example, if you sat down and you're like, hey, what am I afraid of? What am I really feeling? I'm afraid I won't make payroll, right? Okay, so then you're saying, is that true today? Well, no, today I have enough money, but I might not in 2 weeks, or I might not in a week, right? So is it true today? No, it's not true today. Okay, what can I do to move through that fear? Well, I did this yesterday. I went and did a spreadsheet. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's actually not real. We do have enough money for payroll this week, or we do have enough money. Okay, so can I receive that? I can let that go. We have more than enough in our bank account to pay for payroll. And then I wrote that down like 3 times. So I'm experiencing a fear based on a past experience that's not even true. But I'm in the habit of feeling this overwhelming anxiety, a fear that I'm not going to make something, or I'm not going to accomplish something, or I'm not going to complete something. And it's not even true today. So, and we get deep into this kind of like energy and vibration about like what you put out is coming back. So if you're constantly in the state of fear as a CEO, you experience a lot of those real life things that create more fear.
Yeah.
Where if you can shift it and say, okay, that's not even real right now. Okay, what is real right now? Well, the reality is we actually just closed a really big deal that should close on Friday, or that will get funded on Friday. That's a big deal. That's really exciting. And you start focusing on actually what you're completing and accomplishing versus what's not even true of the fear. And I believe a lot of it's a childhood habit, kind of like how your family grew up suppressing. What am I suppressing all the time just by habit versus letting it just flow, right? Like anger is another one. We've been shamed on anger. Oh, you shouldn't feel angry. Actually, anger is really an awesome emotion, right? Anger is, you know what it is, and you're not okay with it. Thank you. Like, awesome. Express that anger. Like, I'm mad at that. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at you for saying that. And maybe you're only looking in the mirror. Maybe you're only like talking out loud to somebody, or maybe you're screaming into a pillow. But just moving that anger energy is really, really healthy. So I think, as a holistic entrepreneur, going through those exercises, asking yourself more questions, finding out what's real rather than a blanket statement that is acceptable by others, but start telling yourself the truth and then moving through it. I'll give you one example, if this is now a good time, or if you have a question. Okay.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
And this is a very this is a hard one for me to talk about, because I can't say it's gone and I can't say it's not still present, and I'm still working through it. About 18 months ago, I had not okay. I was just not okay. And we were developing our product that we've been using now. And I was sitting at my kitchen table doing my morning study and things that I do. And I could just tell I wasn't okay. And I was like, hey, what is this? And I couldn't find it. I was asking myself, what am I feeling? And I had no words. I had nothing to express it. And I didn't even know how to move it. I didn't even know how to find it. So, of course, we have our Vibeonix app. And I knew if I went and tested it, my developers would know it was me. So I was still working through this judgment and what will other people think? And here I have a tool we're building that could maybe help me, right?
Right.
So I finally decided to go and do it. And the strongest emotion that came up for me was loneliness. And Earl, from outside looking in, most people would never think that about me, especially me. I'm married, I have 4 kids. I worked with my best friends. I was around people all the time. I was going to networking events. I was with clients. I had people around me all the time. But the minute that it said loneliness, I said, is this loneliness, out loud to myself? And I just burst into tears. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I would never have thought, and I just sat and bawled for probably a good half hour. And then I started scrambling for all the things that we had wrote around loneliness, because it felt foreign to me here, right? And it was lack of connection. And I started looking at my patterns as an entrepreneur, saying, okay, it was a scary place in our business and I didn't know the answers. And I was kind of going inside, and I wasn't really allowing people in, and I wasn't allowing myself to go out. So I kind of put myself in a shell and I start like kind of calling people and stop going to lunches. And I noticed this behavior of withdrawing quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what I do when I get high levels of stress or high levels of fear, and I don't have the answers, and I don't know how to express it, and I don't know who I trust. I don't know who to tell. I mean, who do you really tell as a CEO? Like, hey, by the way, we might not make payroll next week. Like, you just hold that all in and try to figure it out, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I decided to go to my team, and I took my results and I said, hey, I need to tell you that my highest emotion is loneliness. And I reflected on it, and this is what I do. I withdraw and I don't talk to people and I don't reach out. So if you see that I'm doing that, will you please send me a text or invite me to lunch or just check in on me? And my whole team was like, what? Like, oh my gosh. And I will say our team was never the same after that, because we actually, and I got super supported. And I actually had one girl tell me that she thought that I didn't like her and that she was going to quit because I stopped talking to her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And she's like, I am so glad you told me that, because of course we take everything personal, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was about me, where I was just in my own stuff. So it was super powerful to me, and to see how it affected our own business. And then it affected me and gave me permission to like say, okay, this is my habits. This is what I do. This is my behaviors. This is how I can identify it. And this is how I can solve it, was profound to me. And it changed everything. So
the cool thing is you're learning to apply your own innovation, right? You're learning the real world applications and how that can make an impact on you and your business.
right.
It's really cool. So, a thought that comes to me as we've been talking about this, and the more entrepreneurs I engage with, the more I find that most entrepreneurs have this connection to a higher purpose. They have a connection to, I'm here to do something impactful and good, right? You called it, finding joy and delivering joy, right? When you kind of really adopt or espouse this concept of like being a servant leader, I think you also have to be very careful in not falling out of harmony of, am I only giving and I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not receiving, right? And you can't really give from a position of lack, right? And so if you're not taking care of yourself, last week, Johnny from Homey there, he spoke at the We Are Mind event, and he called it treat yourself. You got to treat yourself first. You got to make sure you're good before you're in a position to give, right? So tell us a little bit more about about that and about your relationship with it.
Well, that's a deep question. And I love this question because it's very near and dear to my heart. And I totally changed my practice in the morning. I know a lot of people talk about meditation. For me, it's connecting to remember. And that may make sense to some people, and it may not. But for me, it's remembering that you are, I'm just going to say it here if it's okay, but like that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. And I reflect on that every single day, because I think this idea that there's something bigger than us, that we're all here to receive and serve, is each other. That's where that stems for me. So my daily practice starts with meditation, where I sit and I go inside and remember that this is what I'm experiencing. This is not who I am. And that was a big, huge change for me, because I started taking every experience so personal. When I realized I am here to learn and expand and grow, and I can't do that without taking risks and without having connection and relationships and like try to do something and express something, right? So even though it can come with the opposite of, but that's just learning. So for me, it's like everything I'm experiencing as a mother, as a wife, as an entrepreneur, They're experiences. They do not define me, and it is not who I am. What I am is a perfect spiritual being, right? And so that was a big deal for me. And my meditations is to connect with that knowing and sit with that and then start my day from there. And it's super powerful. I hope everybody tries it, because you're starting your day from like, that genie, that movie, Aladdin, where it's like all this power in this itty bitty living space. That's really what it comes down to. Like, you're like this powerful person. You're this powerful experience in this itty bitty living space that we're calling Kristi, right? And so, but from that place, what can you create? What influence can you have? What inspiration are you receiving from that space, right? Yeah. So for me, that giving and receiving is much bigger than the tangible experience in my day-to-day. It's between me and source of energy that is me, right? So it's like this huge expansive thing. I know that was pretty deep. I hope that's okay.
It is. No, I think it's fascinating and fantastic.
So then the next thing I do is I start with a phrase. And this phrase to me is the most expansive phrase I've ever learned. And it's I'm so happy and grateful now that. And then I'll finish it. And I'll finish wherever I received from that moment of my meditation. So I'll tell you, with Vibeonix, I wrote down for 2 years, I am so happy and grateful now that Vibeonix is a worldwide company impacting countless people. Now, that's a big, bodacious goal, right? That's a big thing. But that's where my mindset got to be every day, is we are a worldwide company impacting and influencing people to care about themselves. Yes, that's my why all day, every day. I can wake up to that and I can do anything from that space. Yeah. So I wrote that down. I wrote that down every day. When I had struggle in my marriage, I wrote down every day, I'm so happy and grateful now that my marriage is thriving and we are connected, body, mind, and soul. That was profound. We did it. Like, we're doing it. And I still make that part of my proclamation of coming from a space that I have everything I need. I have everything I want. And thank you. Right? So then that's my next thing, is gratitudes. I write down 10 gratitudes. And Earl, this was the funniest part when I started doing this. I started writing them down, and I made a decision that I was going to write down 10, but I was going to sit there until I could feel it. So I could say, I'm so happy, grateful. So I would write like, I'm so grateful for my husband. Okay. And I just shared, we had some rocky times. Okay. Sure. I remember one day it took me an hour just to write that one and actually sit until I could feel it, because I was so mad. And I was like,
it wasn't your experience in the moment. Yeah.
No, yeah. The discipline to sit there, and I just kept visualizing all the things, and it was the most powerful morning, I have to say. And then it never took me that long again. But I'm so happy and grateful for, or I'm so grateful for my kids. Well, we can roll that off the tongue, but feel it. Yeah. Find that gratitude in it. Or for my home and the peaceful place in my home. That was a really big one, and super grateful for that peace in my home. Or I'd write down the flowers or my arms. I remember my fingers where I could grab things. So you could just be grateful for anything. So I wrote down 10 gratitudes, and then I just wrote down 6 things I was going to do that day. And every day I wrote down, I'm going to say yes, which was hard for me. Like, I'm a yes person, but I want to say yes to new opportunities. I said I want to surround myself with like-minded people. That was a big deal. And wow, I have been meeting the most incredible people. I would write down things. I'm gonna give love and light wherever I go. And I wanted people to feel like happier just being around me, right? And I was gonna bring that to the room. I was gonna bring that to the conversation.
You do, absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah. But I wrote that down. I started with that intention. So having that morning practice it completely transformed my life, and business, and that holistic entrepreneurship really stemmed from there.
Yeah. So here we're talking about this concept of you need to take care of yourself before really you can take care of others, Yeah. And that's a lesson I've had to learn the hard way, myself in life and in business. again, the environment, not that I grew up in a wonderful, amazing environment, right? Just sometimes there are tired ideals, that you get, that kind of get passed down. And I grew up in an environment where it was first and foremost everybody else. You take care of everybody else, and you are last, right? If there's anything left over, then that you get that. But outside of that, make sure everybody else is taken care of. And so that's the way I lived my life, my family life, my personal life with friends, and the way I lived in business for a long time. And honestly, that's part of what led to, me becoming completely burnt out, because my coffers were empty. I didn't have anything else to offer, and I wasn't receiving, and I wasn't taking care of, I wasn't refueling myself. And so, these practices you're talking about, whatever it is that people decide, if it's a morning routine, if it's meditation, but whatever helps you connect to who you are, to a higher purpose, to treating yourself. Maybe that's, going for a hike. Maybe it's smelling the flowers. Maybe it's getting a massage. Maybe it's allowing, and for me, this is still very much a skill that I'm working on, is allowing myself to receive from others, right? Allowing myself to be served. Not only serve, but allowing myself to be served. And other people need, the ability to be able to serve you as well. And we all need to be served as well. We need to feel, like we're loved, that we're connected with people who, we mean enough to, that they are willing to do something meaningful for us, right? And for me, those things of like, you got to take care of yourself, whatever it is, mentally, spiritually, physically, sustenance, make sure that you take enough time to do the things you enjoy to do and be with the people you enjoy to be with, right? And make sure that you're allowing yourself to receive and allowing others to serve, so that then you can fill your coffers and you can impart of that, right? That's been a lifelong journey and challenge for me, but it's definitely, I think, something that ties into this concept of holistic entrepreneurship, because if you don't get it at some point, you burn out and you're done. There's no
can I offer one idea on something I know you do, but maybe you could have a different perception about it?
Sure.
Gratitude. Gratitude is receiving. Thank you. Right? You are so good at thank you. You've always been so kind in that way. And I feel like just using the words thank you is receiving what was just given, right? So by using, and be very mindful of it, because I think we say it and then we're like, oh, am I really good at receiving? If we can just start replying with thank you, that really makes our mind reprogram in a way of gratitude for what is given to us freely. So, because think about what is given so freely every day, right? Like air, people, a look, somebody printed something off of the computer does anyone print anymore? I don't even know, but like somebody responded. Somebody responded to an email and you just say, thank you. It's like, I received that. Thank you. I actually, in conversation, I started saying, instead of just thank you, I said, I received that. Thank you. And it really started helping me receive, because I'm like you, I really related to that, whatever's left over. Do you know what's funny? Even look at our accounting systems and our P&Ls. And we train this in business, which, by the way, I did make a little shift and I wanted to mention this, but it's around us all this time that, like, take out your costs, take out your expenses, and now that's your profit, and that's what's left over for you. So we're constantly reinforcing this thinking everywhere. By the way, there's a book called Profit First.
Michael Kalowitz.
Yes,
great
I
guy,
love it.
Great author, good book.
Fantastic, because he's like, if you don't want to get burned out and you don't want to hate your business, make a profit first. And that changed and if we look at our business and our life, like holistically, right? If we take our profit first, then we can make a lasting impact, on the businesses and the life that we create,
Yeah.
right? So it really is that same concept of change the old methodologies that we eat the scraps and we get what's left over, to I am going to make sure my family and me gets a paycheck.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to run my business with what's ever left.
Yeah.
I mean, that I love him. I love that book. I listen to him often. But I wanted to say that, and then also just that thank you, and take a minute and pause and say, I received that. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was one little shift that I did it's a good reminder too.
Totally. When you use the concept from profit first, and you focus on, making sure that you generate that profit and that you take that profit, right? It
Yes.
Oftentimes forces you to reverse engineer your business so that there's enough left over for everything else, right? And
sustainability. That's sustainable. That's not the burnout. That's sustainability. That is when you really know that you own your business and your business doesn't own you.
Yeah.
When you're in charge of your life and you're in charge of your experiences and you realize that you are making that choice, that's radical accountability. That's a whole other thing if we ever want to talk about it. But you are making the choices, be accountable to your choice, and you get to decide your experience, right?
The experience is there by the way, and that's a shift that I had to make at some point, because I used to take what was left, what's left on the table, and honestly, in the early years, maybe it was $20,000 a year, right, that I took home. Maybe it was 40. It was pretty pathetic and pretty lean, and we were eating lots of mac and cheese and whatever, to make it by. But your experience and the vibrational level of that experience is completely different.
Yes.
It's a massive shift, and your well-being, for me, increases significantly when you say, I'm going to take care of myself and my family because that's right, and that's what I need to do. I'm going to make sure that we have what we need, and I'm going to make sure that everybody else has what they need as well. It's very empowering, and it's a quick shift from potential burnout to, hey, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it's actually making a positive impact for me and my family and for everybody else around us, right?
Yep.
And you're right. This this concept of thank you, I believe it's become a lost art in today's society. Expressing gratitude and just some of the formalities. And look, I'm not an overly formal guy. People who know me well outside of stuffy business circles, know that I'm a pretty laid back guy, kind of guy, and not overly into formalities, but that is something that I think, whether you're in personal settings or private business settings, expressing gratitude for what people have done and what you're receiving from them, right? I think is extremely important, and allowing yourself to key into that emotion, that feeling of gratitude that, hey, these people have done something really important here. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that's it. I love that you brought that up so well. I think that thank you. So many times we're like, oh, I have anxiety. It rolls off the tongue and do it. Oh, I thank you. And it goes away. When we can sit in the vibration of it, like you said, sit in that gratitude of feeling, it is more meaningful than anything we could do for our customers, any relationship in our life, for our kids. I'll look at my kids and I'll grab their little hands and I'll look in their eyes and I'm like, thank you. Thank you for doing that today. That really means a lot to me. And just getting present with that emotion of it, that really translates so much bigger. And it's a vibe. People feel it and you feel it. And then you're literally living in that state.
I agree 100%. So Kristi, this has been a fascinating hour. It's been extremely engaging. We didn't get to half of the things we wanted to talk about. We're going to have to do eight of these segments, I think.
Done.
We're running out of time. We want to thank the audience that's joined us this hour. There have been a lot of great comments that we didn't get to, on the different platforms. Thank you all for your interaction, for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to spend this hour with you and Kristi, to learn from Kristi. Just a quick reminder to look for upcoming segments with Jordan Bogard, with Ross McGarvey, and with Stephanie Page. And we wish everybody a fantastic day. Kristi and I are going to sign off.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
See y'all later.